Welcome to the Purple Couch Podcast. I'm your host, Puzzle Box Pam. With me are my co-host, Missy Owen and Dr. Manny Rodriguez. Why are we here? Well, I'm a mom that got put on a mission. I have an amazing 18-year-old who was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder when he was only 2.5 years old. We really knew something was going on by the time he was 1. But like everything in this world, only those that have access to the correct treatment plan or providers were able to tell me what was going on. So for the last decade, I've spent my life banging my drum and making sure that my child, as well as your children, have effective treatment and education that they deserve. This podcast is brought to you so that we can bring the knowledge of over a decade of some of the best experts in the field to your homes. Hi, and welcome to the Purple Couch Podcast. I am Puzzle Box Pam. I'm your host for today's session and for many more to come. Today, we wanted to sit down and let you know a little bit about us and why should you be tuning in? What is it that makes us a little bit different than the other podcasts that are out there? Well, for the last 10 years, I have spent my life helping over 1,500 families here in Brevard County, Florida, with neurodiversity, whether it's autism spectrum disorder, whether it's OCD, ADD, ADHD, the whole alphabet soup of all types of neurodiversity. We've had some form through our schools and through our clinic. My son himself is on the autism spectrum. He's 18 years old now, and he's in the psychology department at Liberty University trying to work towards his degree to become a psychologist so he can let mom retire at some point in time. But he is the North Star, the reason that we're here. Yes. So what does that mean? Well, I was just like many moms, 1 in 38 now in today's society here in 2023. When he was originally diagnosed, it was 1 in 185. So that there, statistically, is enough for us to be coming into your homes because right now we're becoming the norm. Neurotypical students are actually becoming the outlier. So what we need to do is bridge that gap. The only way we can do that is through education. We have got over a decade, well, I should say almost a decade. I have been doing this for over a decade. I've been doing this for 16 years now. But for 10 of those years, we have been helping the public in their homes and in their academic lives, I would say. Yeah. Because Puzzle Box Academy was founded because my son needed a school, not a clinic with a little bit of academic sprinkled in, which we see all the time. Oh, yes. He needed an academic setting that offered the exact same experiences that we all had growing up. We had art, we had music, we had a winter performance, we had a talent show, we had a science fair. These are all things that students get involved in school. But when you have a child that learns a little differently, a lot of times those are things taken away, experiences that they need because they feel that it's not the necessity. It's not the pivotal part of that academic program. And man, are they wrong. So what I'm doing is I'm coming to you with this amazing knowledge that we've gained over my 16 years of being a parent of an autistic child and 10 years as an educator, a clinic owner, a custodian, a janitor, a therapist, a painter, a drywall mutter. I think we've done a little bit of everything.
Driver's ed teacher.
Oh yes, driver's ed teacher, changing tires, baking bread, pandemic host. That one was a good one. But we're here to come into your homes to answer questions by some of the world's best leading BCBAs, child psychologists, neurologists that are in the field. My job is to make sure that those of you all that don't have resources available, get your questions answered by our team. And if our team can't do it, we're going to find specialists within the country or worldwide that can come and answer your questions for you. So today, I just want to take a little time to let you get to know us. So again, I'm Puzzle Box Pam. I am Loki's mom, and Loki is my ASD child who keeps me going. He is my life lesson. He has helped me grow as an adult. He has put me on the mission that I have been on, and that's just making sure that knowledge is shared through everyone, and it's not just for those who can afford treatment or services. And our next step is bringing this podcast to you. So we're hoping to get to as many homes as possible. So please share this link, share this information. That way we can make sure that we're playing this forward. We need to make sure that the ripple in the life pond just keeps on moving. And we can only do that with your help and assistance. Today, I'm going to let you get to know my guest host. I've got our clinical director at Kaleidoscope Interventions and Puzzle Box Academy, Melissa Owens. How are you, Missy?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Oh, I'm telling you. What is it? I think today, I'm not sure when this will be broadcast, but we're on a Wednesday, so it's hump day and it's picture day here at Puzzle Box. So we've got lots of good stuff happening. Mm-hmm. I would like you to tell our audiences a little bit about yourself. Not just you professionally, but also as a parent. You know, guys, that's very key here. We're not just academics. We're not just clinicians. We're here as parents as well. So we're going to answer those questions that you may be afraid to ask when you're sitting in your social circles. So I want you to get to know my team so that you can feel more comfortable. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Missy.
Hi, so I'm Missy, as Pam said. I'm from upstate New York. Outside of Syracuse, if you guys know where that's from, but most people, anything above New York City is upstate.
Go Bills.
There you go. Cuse Nation. So I moved down to Florida with my then boyfriend, now husband, back in August of 2014 to start grad school at FSU for ABA.
Wonderful.
And actually, which is funny, I feel like most people who love ABA and who want it to be their lifelong career didn't know it existed until you actually did it.
Okay.
So I was fully one of those cases.
Nice.
I remember so I can remember this moment vividly. 11th grade psychology class, sitting at my desk with a book in front of me, and there's a little section on autism. And it was kind of right around, obviously in the psych textbook with the mental illnesses and all of that. And it was just so interesting to me how bipolar, schizophrenia, these more intense mental illnesses, we know what caused them. We have medications to help treat them. And then there's autism that affects kids and changes their trajectory for life. We have no idea what causes it. Especially this is 10, 15 years ago.
Absolutely. Loki got diagnosed in 2007.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right around then.
And in 2007, again, we were at 1 in 185, 182, depending on the statistics. Mm-hmm. No causality. Yep. No cure. Mm-hmm. Good luck, parents. Yep. Be glad your child doesn't have behaviors. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's not changed.
No.
We're 16 years into this now and no change. No. Mm-hmm. So I feel you on that one. You're right. You're right in there with the DSM that's talking about some really, really schizophrenia, bipolar, these huge mental health conditions. And then there's autism. Yep. And it's like, now we're hitting 1 in 38, but we don't have a cure, we don't have a cause, and good luck to you, Mom and Dad.
Yep, so I was just fascinated by it. So that in undergrad, my whole trajectory was psychology. I didn't know ABA existed, so I minored in statistics, was planning to go get my PhD so I could work with autism in some function. I didn't know how. Gotcha. Then I was applying to actually the PhD program at FSU. And then I saw they had the master's in ABA, and I read the description. That is literally what I want to do in life.
Very nice.
I'm like, I didn't know this existed. I don't know. It was crazy. So then, luckily, I got into FSU, went there. Dr. Bailey's amazing. Big Dr. Bailey fan here.
So let's take 1 second to give credit where credit is due. We got blessed. And again, the three of us sitting here, and this is why we're coming to you. My mentor was Jose, Dr. Diaz. Dr. John Bailey is also known as the godfather of ethics in the ABA community, and I think we all would agree with that. So we never knew the three of us were going to get together, but our life path put us in this position through Puzzle Box, through Kaleidoscope, through the OBM network, things along those lines, that we have got this wonderful synergistic blend of backgrounds and knowledge from some of the best. And now we're not talking about just in the United States. We're talking about some of the best in the world. Yep. And we're bringing it to your home. So Dr. Bailey, huge shout out to you.
Yes.
Dr. Diaz and all of your grace and presence, Dr. Skinner, setting the foundations. Yeah. So again, we want to give credit where credit's due. So talk to me about this transition from psychology into ABA. And if you could, for our audience, give them a little background on ABA. Because now, applied behavioral analysis is one of the only forms of therapeutic treatment that is clinically proven to help children on the spectrum.
Yeah, so it was, as far as logistically going, it was easy to go psychology right to ABA. As far as the coursework is considered, it was just a straight path in there.
Keep going.
Oh yeah. And then with ABA, so ABA is one of the most effective strategies, as you said, for kiddos with autism. There's also a program I had looked into called Teach, which is specific to UNC, which I know that has a lot of kind of good research going. And there's a lot of little things like that, kind of like the Teach. But right now, ABA is the only research-driven, effective way to treat autism.
Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate for people that have heard little things about ABA. And I'm an old head, So I've walked through the path of ABA when we have heard, that's like dog training. So for some of our audience that is not familiar with the changes that have happened in ABA, why do people associate ABA and dog training together? Can you help that? Because, our parents, they're like, ABA, I've heard, stay away from that. That's, animal training.
Oh, yeah.
So can you give a little feedback into how that's changed?
Definitely. So the origins of ABA research, it was done, back in B.F. Skinner days with pigeons, with rats. It was done with animals. As most research is done, you kind of start at that basic level with the animals, and then we apply it to humans. So it has evolved so much in 50 years. If you look at any of the other psychology fields, like CBT, psychoanalysis, all of them have been around hundreds of years.
Give me just 1 second. So CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. I want to let you all know that the world of ABA, applied behavioral analysis, is filled with abbreviations. So if I hear one, I'm going to take a moment just to pause so that we can give you the information that follows those initials. Because even ABA, some of my friends that I talk to are like, the American Bar Association. Right. And I'm like, no, we have a different ABA, but still same initials.
Yes.
Okay, so even though there's these other practices that are in place, ABA being clinically proven to work in the field of autism, your own personal experience. What age brackets have you dealt with? And talk a little bit about using ABA in your own home as a mom.
As I worked with kiddos, I want to say my youngest was around 2, oldest up until age 14. So that's probably the main range of kiddos getting ABA therapy this day is within that range. And I love ABA. It's amazing. We go where the behavior goes. Especially back when I was doing in-home, I used to tell parents all the time, as long as the site lets us in, we can go wherever. There's always things to work on. Something we'll say is, we call it the dead man's test. So if it's something a dead man can do, that's not behavior, not ABA. If it's something a dead man can't do, that's ABA, that's behavior. We can work on it in some way.
I love that.
It's cool. And then at home, we definitely try to use ABA. She's smart. Smart little one. She knows the rules and how to manipulate already. So trying to at least instill with my husband the basics of planned ignoring and when to give attention and when not to give attention. It's kind of the big one we're going on. She will be 2 in November, so Terrible 2 started, I want to say 18 months, not a 2. It started back then. It's just a lot of patience in that understanding, which I feel like can relate to our kiddos as well, that yes, like my daughter, she's smart. She knows what she's doing. She doesn't care. So we need to teach her the appropriate way to gain attention, the appropriate way to do these things. Same with our kiddos. We may look like, they're on a 5th grade math level. What's wrong? It's like, well, you need to teach them the appropriate way to do things. 'Cause yes, it works. Exactly. And it's kind of that social connection that for some kiddos, like myself, being yelled at, that's the worst thing ever. I will do anything to avoid it. Our kiddos with autism, hey, some of them, that's attention. They don't care. It's the fact that, hey, this adult's talking to me, not talking to you. I don't care what they say. I'm getting the attention. Life is good.
I think that's another key point that we're going to focus on in the next episodes coming up is what is the function of the behavior? So when she's talking about ABA follows the behavior, there are different strategies and programs you can put in place for the smallest to the largest function that your child is dealing with at home, all the way from accepting no, not an option. You know, in our home, we really try not to use no because that seems to be negative reinforcement. So you'll hear us, not an option today. I'm so sad. You know, because again, we're reinforcing with that empathy. So check us out in another episode. We're going to go deep diving into what's the function of the behavior, because parents, when you change that mind shift, when you change why are they doing what they're doing, not, oh my gosh, you know, I think that is a big key, and it's pivotal that if we're going to ask our kids to change, we also have to start looking at our own behavior.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So right now, Missy, can you tell us a little bit about what your position is within the company and what you're doing in today's world with our kids on the spectrum?
Yeah, so I'm the clinical director. So we have 2 locations right now that we provide ABA clinical services at. So at the one location, I do have my own caseload, and then just kind of managing, make sure, you know, the hours get met, all the kiddos have what they need, that we're making gains, hitting those goals. If not, what can we do? How can we intervene? Some big focus that we're doing right now is how to fade back those ABA services. Another big critique we get is that we're creating little robots who don't do anything unless someone tells them to do it. So that's called prompt dependency, which we do run into that issue a lot, especially with our kiddos with that initial teaching. It does take a lot of prompting and then, this is how you pick up. I need you to pick up the book. That's how you pick up the book. And if you don't effectively fade that back, then kiddos just become so reliant on someone telling them to do something. They know how to do it. They know it needs to be done. But unless someone's there to kind of key them to do it, they won't do it.
Gotcha.
So that's why we're really focusing on not only fading back prompts, fading back physical proximity, because that's another situation is that we have a kiddo who can't tolerate not having a shadow, essentially.
Absolutely.
Which that is just not setting them up for success in life.
Correct. And I want to focus on that, and we're going to talk about those practices in the next coming sessions as well, is ABA in the field in general. You have 2 different trains of thought. So you have where you're building the student, the child, for independence. But then you will also have that student or child that we have to gauge where that independence really will fall. And the spectrum being so large, it is very important for us to be able to hone in on where your child is currently and where we're looking at that trajectory so that we can get them there. You know, and having true realistic goals. That is key. It's key as parents. It's key so that we can keep the momentum going. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the future episode coming. I also want to shift and talk to our other co-host.
Who's having a bit of a tickle in my throat at the moment.
That's okay. Welcome to Florida. As we can see in the nation, everyone is getting hit with allergies.
Oh
and you know what's really funny is this podcast will go with the flow of what we're doing in the environment. And the reason I bring that up is allergies is a big component to a lot of our children on the spectrum.
Yes.
I'm glad to be a model.
See, we're modeling that behavior for you. Dr. Manny Rodriguez is also our co-host here, and he'll be joining us every episode of the Purple Couch podcast. Manny, can you tell them a little bit about your background? Because you're ABA driven, but you also, and again, going to toot our horn, is that you also are OBM driven as well. So can you give the parents and our followers a little bit of information about both of those and how you got into the field?
Sure. So my career path is focused been on organizational behavior management, which is OBM for short. And essentially OBM in a nutshell is applied behavior analysis applied in the workplace. And the goal is very simple. It's to make a better life for the employees of the company as well as the customers that the company serves.
Yeah, well, we can't preach what we don't practice.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I've had a great honor to have over a 20-year career in this field, and it's been awesome. So where did it all start? Because it's definitely not a road most traveled. So the coincidence between the 3 of us is we talked a little bit about Dr. John Bailey and Dr. Jose Martinez-Diaz. These are 2 pioneers in the field, and I've had the honor to be taught by both.
Mm-hmm.
So Missy and I share something in common. We didn't even know it. Years apart, but close together, is Florida State University. That's where I got my undergraduate back in the late 90s, early 2000s. My professor was Dr. John Bailey, and that was a happy accident, is like how I like to call it. My dual degree was in psychology and criminal justice.
You knew you were going to be a police officer.
Yeah, my career path was not as psychology was kind of that major in Florida State at the time where you wanted to learn it, right? But you wanted to learn it and either make it a career path or apply it to whatever the other career path you were going. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to become a criminal justice profiler, work at the FBI, things like that. And my first job that I was trying to get was the Miami-Dade Police Department. Life didn't work out that way, which is fine. But then I started at the point of my junior year of college is when I met John Bailey. And I actually met him in a career psychology course. So he came, he did his spiel, probably 45 minutes, and it impacted my whole life. Nice. Because then the next couple of days, I tried to get on his calendar, meet him in his office, and I sat toe-to-toe with him, and I said, I want to do whatever it is you're doing. I think it's the coolest thing ever. So John, in his grace, said, do you have a girlfriend? At the time I didn't. I said no. He says, good, because you don't have time for that. Do you have a job? And at the time I did. I actually had two to help pay for college. He goes, yeah, you won't have time for that either unless you apply it where you work. Nice. And I said, okay, we can make something like that happen. I don't know what you're talking about, but we'll figure it out. So fast forward, junior, senior year, I spent with him and his grad students. I was going to his labs. I was learning their research. I was a guinea pig for his research experiments. I was doing research in the background, did the analytics. I mean, I probably knew every single one of his PhD students by the end of the year. And then I took what's called his performance management certificate program, which was kind of the launching pad of my whole career in organizational behavior management. So along the way, I met another guru in our field called Dr. Aubrey Daniels. Aubrey Daniels, he was... him and John Bailey worked very closely together for many, many years. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize it at the time who I was meeting, but who I met, this gentleman named Dr. Aubrey Daniels, was really the pioneer of the field of organizational behavior management. He helped coin the term organizational behavior management. He founded the Journal of Organizational. I mean, I was reading a legend and I didn't realize it at the time.
But isn't that the best?
Oh, it was awesome. And he didn't showboat it. He came, he was very gracious with his time. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Wanted to learn from the students who were learning from his books and his research and stuff. And
it's that great. Ripple in life again.
Oh my God. Mm-hmm. Well, and it all comes to fruition because one of the first professional jobs I had in the field of organizational behavior management was with Dr. Aubrey Daniels' company, Aubrey Daniels International. Mm-hmm. It was first as an intern making no money and driving all the way to South Carolina to work in a client site at a nuclear power plant. Oh my! Doing that back and forth from Florida State back to Atlanta and South Carolina.
Now that's a commute. Yeah. I thought my DC commute was bad, but I'm like, okay.
It was a trek, and I was doing it with my girlfriend at the time, now my ex-wife, but we were doing it together, and boy, did that not test a relationship. That was kind of the early start. And then, but John Bailey in his Pearls of Wisdom said, if you really want to know applied behavior analysis, you need to know applied behavior analysis. So I remember I was just getting my undergrad at the time. Mm-hmm. So he said, you got to go to grad school. So I applied to all of them, including Florida State, but I went to Florida Institute of Technology.
FIT.
And FIT at the time is not the FIT that exists today. It's very different. Not better or worse, just different. And the difference was that there was one professor, the late Dr. Jose Martinez Diaz, who passed away not too long ago. Mm-hmm. And it was Jose was the main professor. There was a couple other ones and then adjuncts. And there were 15 of us in a cohort or less. I think we started with 15, and by the time we were done in the 2 years, we got down to 12 because 3 fizzled out. Mm-hmm. But there I was, and part of my journey in applied behavior analysis in grad school, I had to do 2 things. One, I had to learn the ropes of the clinical world of applied behavior analysis. So what that meant at the time was Manny had to find a job. And I got hired at a company called Intervention Services here in Brevard County. And that practice was in-home and in public schools. Now, at the time, this is early 2000s. So autism and the autism bubble.
Oh, we were walking it at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
And the autism bubble, that we know it today, the 1 in 36, 1 in 38.
Exactly.
That wasn't a thing back then. It was not as easily diagnosed. It wasn't as prevalent.
Rain Man
was kind of the epitome, and some of the words that are not even used anymore.
Correct.
Language-wise. But so back then, my clientele was not even children diagnosed with autism.
And give me 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
Manny made a good point. Diagnosing has changed enough that even the DSM, which is the diagnosing manual, just so that we can turn this into layman terms so that I can make sure that our parents and grandparents are keeping with us as we talk. Because a lot of times clinical knowledge stays clinical knowledge. And we have got to be able to turn it into layman terms, meaning terms that you and I would speak at home sitting at the dining room table.
Yeah.
So when he's talking about the diagnosing changing, I'm going to use my son as the reference so that we can relate as parents.
Yeah.
So when my son was originally diagnosed, there was autism, there was Asperger's, and then there was PDD and OS.
I forgot about
Oh, yeah. Pervasive developmental disorder, non-descriptive.
Not otherwise specified.
Yes, because they were like, well, you're not extremely low functioning to be listed as simply autistic, and you're not Asperger's because, well, maybe you had some communication, you didn't have communication, you had some eye contact, you didn't have eye contact. The diagnosing was very,
How to be nice.
I'm trying to. Needless to say, it was based on the psychologist, truly.
Yeah.
There wasn't if you fit this box, and this box, this is where you go.
Right. Why?
Because the field was growing, because we were seeing more and more children. And the Rain Man Savant, rockers, and I'm doing this because this is still some of my children. And you'll hear me say that. I have one biological child, and I should clear that up. I have one biological son, Loki. But on the average, I have about 100 to 114 every year that I take in under my wing. And the reason I say that is because most of our parents know what it's like to drop their child off that have zero expressive language. And there's no words that can express the feeling, it's scary. Your nerves, going to work and trying to focus on your job while you know that your child, who can't tell you if they've had a good day, can't tell you if they've had a bad day, they can't express to you if someone took their toy, the little things, but even more so in this day and age. So Manny, talk a little bit about your field background, because where mine has been 100% as a mom, learning the clinical side of it, because I'm from West Virginia, and so we traveled. We didn't have BCBAs. We didn't have neuropsychologists that were ahead of the game back in 2006, 2007. So we had to fly. That's why I'm a transplant from, the whole Metro DC, West Virginia area down here to Florida, because Loki's doctors were down here. So talk to us about a little bit of your background, please.
Okay. My story is going to go full circle in terms of starting at the clinical practice. So in the early 2000s, I got a chance to work with kids ages 6 to 17, none of which were diagnosed with autism. They were Johnny who couldn't stay still in class, diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. It was Johnny who just didn't want to do what you asked him to do. Also diagnosed as oppositional defiant disorder. And there's other acronyms, right? But
the ABC soup.
And I'm going to use Johnny because Johnny's an easy name to kind of disclose, like anybody can know Johnny if you picture Johnny. But Johnny was the kid that, no matter if it was 6 to 17, was just the kid that was having trouble. Having trouble at home, having trouble in school, having trouble socializing with peers, having trouble following directions, instructions, whatever. Academic, non-academic, in the community, not in the community, it doesn't matter. Johnny's having trouble. So I was called in as a board certified behavior analyst. At the time when I first started in the career, there was probably less than 10,000 of us, in 2004 is when I first got my BCBA. So I worked with that population, but then I got some unique ones. The unique ones that I got were a 16-year-old female with anorexia bulimia, and I actually had to get highly supervised by a doctor in New York City because it was definitely a first for me.
Okay.
And in our field of practice, one of the things that parents need to know about anything about board certified behavior analysts is we have something called, we have to follow our scope of competency.
Yes.
Right? So we have to know what we know, we have to do what we know, and if we
know
don't know
what
it,
you don't know.
and know what we don't know. And if we don't know it,
Don't
go
do
find
it.
help. Right?
You know,
or don't do it.
I want to stop you there real quick, just for a moment. Parents, statistically, we just came back from FABA, and I just want to let you all know some of the statistics that are out there go hand in hand with what you're talking about right now, which is quality service professionals. Because we're now dealing with 1 in 38 children, that means 1 in 38 kids needs ABA services or could benefit from ABA services. The issue that we're having right now across the globe is that we're at 100% shortage. For every BCBA that there is currently, there's an open vacancy also available.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I'm honing in on this, and I want you all to come back for our future podcast, is because understanding quality care is key. Understanding your scope of service is key.
Yep.
When you have BCBAs just graduating from college without any practical experience, red flag, guys, red flag. Question your BCBA's background. You're asking them to come in and help shape and mold your child. So understand, what knowledge do you have? My child is not a research child.
Right.
My child is a human being and part of my household and not just a number.
Right.
So I cannot stress that enough to our parents who are listening right now, is that the key is making sure not only do you have the right therapist that melds with your family, but also make sure that their level of background is in that specific targeted child behavior. Because you may have a BCBA that did all of their background at SeaWorld.
Yep, that's true.
I say that because we're here right in Central Florida.
Working with kids.
We want to make sure that just because you are a board certified behavioral analyst that has only worked in the animal field, that you're not then coming in and working with my itty bitties. We do background checks. But I can tell you in the field right now, when there's such a shortage, there are other providers that are not. So do your due diligence as a parent. You have the right to say no to a provider. So we offer free parent training online every single month. So we can help you while you're trying to find that professional that works great with your child. But make sure that you do your due diligence, call, ask for references, and find out where their experience is.
No, I think that's great. When it comes to, because now I'm a parent, and back then when I first started, I wasn't a parent. I was in my 20s. And so one of the things that I reflect on now is something that actually John Bailey used to say is, if you get a case that you don't know you don't know that specific needs or diagnoses or things like that, like anorexia bulimia. One of our codes of ethics is you seek supervision. You actually get somebody to help you on that case that knows that area, that competency, right? So I felt pretty comfortable with knowing applied behavior analysis, kind of the concepts, principles, the basics, the foundations. And it was a kid that was highly verbal. She was very verbal. She was very sassy. She was interesting. And to add more complexity to this particular case, foster care. So she had foster parents. She didn't know her biological parents.
Okay. She
had been in 5-6 different foster homes. So, you add to the layers of complexity, add in a 22-something-year-old BCBA, and it's like, well, what are we going to do here? So I definitely got great supervision. And that's what parents need to make sure. If you do have a BCBA and that's the one that was handed to you, ask them, do you know everything about my kid? Are you going to be able to help my kid? Or do you have a supervisor or a mentor that's going to help you? We all got to start somewhere, right?
Absolutely.
So, but those were my cases, and that lasted about 2-3 years, my early career. And then that launched when I went into the world of business. And just to make a connection point, we're talking about human behavior and organizational behavior management. The difference between clinical side is on the clinical side, we're talking about a child all the way to adults, with some developmental delays or learning disabilities, or maybe just some problem behaviors they want to work on, right? Some skills that they want to work on. In the workplace, we're talking about employees. Woo. We're talking about adults. Mm-hmm. We're talking about anybody that is getting paid to do a job, and you have the layers on layers of supervisors, managers, directors, all the way to our executives.
Absolutely.
And the question becomes, why doesn't my employee do what I need them to do or want them to do, and what do I do about it?
What's the function?
So organizational behavior management just tackles the problem at that level. Yes. To say, okay, we got employees that have a job, that get paid to do a job. We have executives that have expectations. They have needs and wants just like anybody else in terms of their business. How do we make it all function so that we're getting the best out of everyone, getting the best, to quote Aubrey Daniels, the best out of people, right? Yep. Bringing out the best in people to make a positive difference in the lives of both the employees as well as the customers themselves.
Well, that's how we started working together. We started working together, not in the function of working with our kids, but actually coming in, you had your company come in and actually work a profile for our company. Why? Because as a private held business, if it's broke, I believe in making the change. Right. But I had to even learn as a business professional about change management. Yeah. That was one of the biggest things that I took away about 5 years ago from working with you originally, was how important being able to make those changes are, but also being able to do it effectively with your team. And that's where the world of behavioralism comes in. Absolutely. OBM was the segue to go, okay, Pam, yes, we need to make this change, but it's going to shock some of your employees. So let's do it in steps. Let's get their buy-in. And it's funny, I'm going to pull this all in a circle here because we come to work and we expect our paycheck. Let's all be real. That's our reinforcement. So when we're working with our kids, and we talk about ABA, we have to find out what their reinforcement is. Yep. And I can tell you as a business professional for 20 plus years now, finding that individual's motivation is key.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And definitely. That again goes back to our core with ABA is finding what is that motivation. And that's going to be different for every child. Just like it's going to be different for your mom, it's going to be different for your dad. Every child in your home. You've got 5 kids, so I'm sure you're trying to find reinforcement and motivation every day.
We haven't even gone into that, but yes, definitely. I mean, you have kind of circled back on you mentioned change management. That's taking step approaches to change with our people and our business, right? Which is not different than taking step changes with our kids.
Absolutely.
When we're asking them to do something different, watch out.
Right.
So I have, as you mentioned, I have 5 kids, right? And so something that Missy and I share in common too is our kids' ages. My youngest kids are 2, they're twins, and they both turned 2 not too long ago. My oldest is 15, and then I have an 11 and 9. And to add complexity to the mix that probably a lot of our listeners are going to have too. And my story is hers, mine, and ours.
Yes.
So the 15-year-old biologically is my wife's, Paige, and I was very honored to be able to adopt her. While we've been together. So now she's my adopted daughter. My 11 and 9-year-old come from my prior marriage, right? And then the twins, who are now 2. So it's a hers, mine, and ours story. And
but you are right. This is the norm nowadays.
It's not uncommon,
it brings the relativity. We can now sit down as parents, as educators, as professionals, and touch our families on multiple areas. Yeah. So, parents, I'm tuning in to you with this because no question is silly. We used to say that in school. The only question is the one that's not asked. That's the problem. Yeah. So, we have an open forum here at the Purple Couch Podcast. Please, as your questions come up, as your situations at home, or even in your workplace, send us an email. Reach out to us. We will answer them, and if we can't, just like finding our supervision, we will find someone who can answer the problems for you. That's what this podcast is all about, is understanding that the 3 of us are human. We are human beings. Just like disabilities, they do not see money, They do not see color. They do not see sex. They do not see creed. They are non-discriminating. And that's what this Purple Couch is all about. We are coming into your family, into your home to benefit you. Because if we can help you, then you can help your child. So that's our main goal. We don't want to take up too much of your time. We're trying to do these in 30-minute segments because we're looking at it as if you're driving to work, if you're driving to home, we want to give you the encouragement and the power to hear our voices and to take them home with you. So we would love to filter your questions, your concerns. We want to make our home your home. So please reach out to us and tune in next time to the Purple Couch Podcast.